Everyday routines became to be of paramount importance, and learning new ways of explaining change also became critical. Changes to routines or other plans for the day could cause, and still do cause, major upsets and anxiety. It was therefore important to set routines, plans, and parameters in newly defined ways, such as ordering the sequence of events rather than putting time slots to these, as times can so easily slip. Familiarisation visits prior to appointments when visiting a new venue, and not moving or changing items in the house that would cause upset. And indeed, this last week has been no exception, trying to prepare him and keep him vaguely calm for his A-level results, and now, very thankfully, and in answer to prayer, helping him arrange familiarisation visits to Cardiff University, where he'll be starting to study maths next month. A real answer to prayer, as Tom was adamant he couldn't go anywhere else, and this would cause the least change to his routines. And our ability to deal with change isn't just limited to those with extreme reactions like Tom. We all have some resistance to change in our lives, however small or large that change may be, and whether the timings for these changes are instant or transitory. It may be that morning cup of coffee that you just can't change to hot water and lemon that all the health critics swear by. A new work colleague who doesn't, in your opinion, fit in as well as an old colleague. Zoom meetings instead of face-to-face meetings, or a family illness of a previously healthy individual. And whilst some welcome change, for others, any change can bring a range of negative emotions, including challenge, discomfort, uncertainty, fear, hurt, or stress. And whilst dealing with change will be more challenging for some than others, it is something that we will all have to deal with at some point during our lives, and something that we cannot protect people from. It is a certainty in life and will happen numerous times. Some change may only be minor and inconsequential. Other changes can be life-altering and frightening. Some change is welcomed, other change is not. And often, change isn't always within our control, coming at inconvenient times, in inconvenient ways, and not to our liking. However, the Bible reminds us that we will all encounter change during our lives, and that this is part of God's purpose and plan for us. He provides our cycles of life, each with its work for us to do, and the timing of these is important. I was reminded of this earlier this week when attending the funeral of a friend who died very suddenly and unexpectedly following a massive stroke. One of the readings at the funeral was the familiar passage from Ecclesiastes 3, verses 1 to 8, which tells us, "For everything there is a season, a time for every activity under the heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to cry and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to turn away, a time to search and a time to quit searching, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be quiet and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace." From this reading, I was also reminded of the book of Daniel, chapter 2, verses 20 to 21, which tells us to praise the name of God forever and ever, for he has all wisdom and power. He controls the course of world events. He removes kings and sets up other kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the scholars. All of these experiences and events described in Ecclesiastes are appropriate at certain times and certain points in all of our lives, whether we welcome them or not. Some are predictable, such as the seasons, but others are less so, such as dying. However, the book goes on to discuss that the secret to peace with God is to discover, accept, and appreciate God's perfect timing of these changes and all events in our lives. Doubting or resenting God's timing is not good for us, as it can lead us into despair, rebellion, or moving ahead without God's advice. Solomon's book of Ecclesiastes explores the emptiness that we can experience if we take certain paths in life that are not in accordance with God's plans and purposes for us, and explores the true purpose we should follow if we are to experience true meaning in our lives. He acknowledges that life involves both risk and opportunity, but because life has no guarantees, a point I'll come back to, we must be prepared for what lies ahead. Just because life is uncertain or changeable at times doesn't mean that we should do nothing and idle away our time or avoid commitment. To this end, Solomon continues to set out that we need a spirit of trust and adventure, facing life's risks, challenges, and opportunities with God-directed enthusiasm and faith. And indeed, in Ecclesiastes 11, verses 4 and 6, we read, "Farmers who wait for the perfect weather never plant. If they watch for every cloud, they never harvest. Plant your seed in the morning and keep busy all afternoon, for you don't know if profit will come from one activity or another, or maybe both." Here Solomon is using the analogy of the farmer for our lives. Waiting for those perfect conditions as we perceive them in life will mean inactivity, and this practical insight is especially important for our spiritual lives. If we wait for the perfect time and place for personal Bible reading or prayer, we will never begin. If we wait for a perfect church, we will never join. If we wait for the perfect ministry, we will never serve. We need to take steps to grow spiritually now if we aren't already. Don't wait for conditions that likely will never exist. And Solomon's rationale for this urgency in planting and harvesting can be seen in Ecclesiastes 12, verse 13, where he continues, "Now here is my final conclusion. Fear God and obey his commands, for this is everyone's duty. God will judge us for everything we do, including every secret thing, whether good or bad." Solomon's conclusion presents his antidote for the two main ailments described in his book. Those who lack purpose and direction in life should fear God and obey his commands. Those who think life is unfair should remember that God will review every person's life to determine how they have responded to him, and he will bring every deed into judgment. No matter what the mysteries of life are, no matter what situations God has created for us, no matter how much life's changes and challenges throw us off course, we must work towards the sole purpose of knowing God. This is the only real purpose that will make sense of life itself. And Solomon's comments on timing are critical, as we never know when God determines our life here on earth will end. That being said, I want to return to Solomon's assertion that life has no guarantees to help us deal with change that life throws at us, and propose an alternative way of looking at this. I want to consider whether, in fact, the Bible does give us some guarantees to help us to deal with the change that we will all experience during our lifetime, And for what it's worth, my view is that the Bible does give such guarantees. First and foremost, we can take reassurance that God himself does not change. For in Malachi 3, verse 8, it is written, "For I, the Lord, do not change." We know that the God we love today is the same God as yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And this is reinforced in Hebrews 13, verse 8, where we are reminded that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. And if we accept that God does not change, we can also take reassurance that God's word will never change. This is supported both in the Old and New Testaments. In Matthew 24, verse 35, it says, "Heaven and earth will disappear, but my words will never disappear." Isaiah 40, verse 8, "The grass withers and the flowers fade, but the word of our God stands forever." And Psalm 119, verse 152, "I have known from my earliest days that your laws will last forever." This reassurance in the everlasting nature of the written word of God also confirms for us that God's purposes towards us will never change either. This can be seen in Psalm 33, verse 11, where it says, "But the Lord's plans stand firm forever. His intentions can never be shaken." And this is reinforced in Proverbs 19, verse 21, where Solomon states, "You can make many plans, but the Lord's purpose will prevail." Further reference can also be found in Hebrews 6, verses 17 to 18, where it is written, "God also bound himself with an oath, so that those who could receive the promise could be perfectly sure that he would never change his mind." So God has given both his promise and his oath. These two things are unchangeable because it is impossible for God to lie. These verses also confirm another natural consequence of God's unchangeability towards us, namely that his promises to us also never change. To this end, we can therefore be certain that God will always love us, no matter what our circumstances are, no matter how much we sin, and no matter how much we turn away, run, or hide from him. Reassurance for this can again be found in the scriptures, including Psalm 136, verse 26. "Give thanks to the God in heaven. His faithful love endures forever." And 1 John 4, verse 8. "God is love." To me, these guarantees that we have been given can assist us in coping or managing with change in our lives. If we take on board the promises that we have been given, we can take comfort that our steadfast and unchanging God hears and answers our prayers. This is clearly set out in Philippians 4, verses 6 to 7, where it is stated, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ." What a wonderful guarantee, a peace that surpasses all understanding, even for a change that we do not welcome. God knows the plans he has for each and every one of us, and as stated in Jeremiah 29, verse 11, they are plans for good and not disaster, to give you a future and a hope. We also know from Romans 8, verse 28, that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them. This doesn't necessarily mean that life will be easy, uneventful, or without pain or hurt, but at least gives us the promise that if we keep our eyes firmly set on Jesus, we have a future of hope. So in conclusion, take comfort from the direction that Solomon provides in Ecclesiastes, that life will only have meaning once we focus on God. Begin or continue planting and sowing without delay, as there may never be the perfect time for study, prayer, or service. And remember that God will always be with you. His constant, unchanging love and guidance will always be available to you. So regardless of what changes life is currently throwing at you, or indeed may throw at you in the future, take reassurance that, as stated in Deuteronomy 31, verse 8, that the Lord himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, as the Lord will instruct and teach you in the way you should go. He will counsel you with his loving eye on you. And as it is written in Proverbs 3, verses 5 to 6, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. Such focus will provide that peace that God is in control, even if we don't understand his plans for us, as they are higher plans than ours, and provide the peace that surpasses all understanding. Let us pray. Father God, we thank you that you are in control of everything, the cycles of life that we are part of, and the paths that our lives follow. Lord, help us to take comfort that if we place our full reliance on you and keep our eyes firmly set on you, then you will guide us through the challenges that life throws upon us. Lord, thank you that your word is constant. Thank you that you are the provider of hope and that your love for us will never disappear. Lord, help us to keep our eyes firmly set on you as we go through our week, so that we may take that comfort that surpasses all understanding. Amen.